Estamos aquí en un parque especial por Eilat, se llama Timna Park. Vamos aquí porque vamos a ver el tabernáculo de los israelitas cuando andaban en el desierto y andaban perdidos, pero siempre andaba con su tabernáculo. Y mi hermana Rosy quería decir unas palabras.
Para mí, estar aquí, es bien emocionante para mí. Ayer, por ejemplo, estábamos en el Mar Rojo con Jorge en un barco y Jorge me preguntó, ¿qué pasó aquí en el Mar Rojo? Yo no pude decir nada, aunque yo sé la historia, ¿ok? Es cuando los israelitas cruzaron
de
Egipto a la tierra prometida por medio del Mar Rojo. Ahora, a veces cuando Jorge me pregunta algo, yo estoy tan relajada, estoy de vacaciones, pero también estoy
impactada
y sin palabras que yo vivo aquí, que yo estoy experimentando esto aquí. Estamos en el desierto, cerca de Eilat. Estamos aquí, vamos a ir a este lugar, este parque bien especial, donde es una réplica, yo no sé
una
cómo
réplica
de lo que
del tabernáculo.
De lo que pasaron hace más de 2000 años atrás. Para mí es muy emocionante, muy especial estar aquí, en este lugar, en Israel.
El problema es que tuvimos un mal comentario en YouTube que decía, no saben ni nada de la Biblia, no saben la historia, qué vergüenza.
Primeramente la gente es falta de respeto, ¿ok? Yo no estoy allí, Jorge me preguntó como sin prepararme, sin nada. Yo estaba relajando en el momento.
Y consumiendo el tiempo, el momento.
Processing it all in. Yo no estoy para dar historias a nadie. Yo estoy aquí con este tiempo,
recibiendo.
Exacto, como taking it all in. Yo sé mis historias, por eso yo estoy sin palabras a veces. Desde Jerusalén, Galilea, a Eilat, al Mar Rojo.
Vamos a ir al Mar Muerto.
Vamos a ir al Mar Muerto, vamos a ir a Nazaret, donde creció Jesús. Y
a veces estando en Tierra Santa hay gente que queda sin palabras.
Sí, yo quedo sin palabras. Comentarios que no son
negativos.
Necesarios, ¿ok? Algo bien, no solamente falta de respeto, pero bien estúpido, ¿ok? Para decir esa palabra. Y a mí no importa quién se ofenda ahorita, porque la verdad es que la gente a veces solo pone comentarios
por poner,
y es bien estúpido. Es like, really, empiezan bueno y luego terminan con una babosada estúpida. Ay, ni saben que están allí en la Tierra Santa, pero
no saben nada.
Ni la historia de la... Bueno, ¿qué tal que yo no quería
compartir? Otra cosa que me dijeron a mí, yo estaba emocionado manejando una lancha aquí en el Mar Rojo y me dijeron, andás en una lancha viejísima, viejo.
A nosotros no nos importa eso. Son la gente que, en serio, que quieren seguirlo a uno en las redes
sociales. Quieren seguirle todos los pasos, pero criticando.
Tienen páginas que no tienen followers, que no tienen postings, fotos y nada de eso, solo para estar vigilando, hablando babosada y comentando, porque es la verdad. Yo bloqueo a la gente así, que me están siguiendo, que no tienen followers, que solo están allí, they don't like, they don't comment, nada, solo para estar viendo. Para mí, tú tienes mucho tiempo en tu mano, y yo no soy como Jorge, que a Jorge le encanta compartir todo, y yo no soy así. Yo comparto lo que yo quiero, lo que cuando el Señor quiere que yo comparto, pero lo hago porque quiero. Jorge, al pesar de todos los comentarios negativos
a mí me gusta compartir, no me importa la gente que sea ignorante.
La ignorancia de las personas, obviamente, ¿por qué lo siguen? ¿Por qué siguen?
¿Por qué siguen a alguien que no quieren ver? ¿Por qué siguen a alguien
jugando o
¿Me
están
entiende?
hablando bien cosas ignorantes. Que
Yes.
al contrario, Jorge está, porque mucha gente, millones de personas gustarían estar aquí. Y Jorge está haciéndole el favor de compartir el camino en la Tierra Santa.
Este país, la Tierra Santa, Israel, está cerrado ahorita. No hay turistas, no hay de entrada, no hay nada fácil para la gente que quiere venir a visitar.
Y casi por 2 años Israel ha estado cerrado al turismo. Abren y cierran y abren. Y es una cosa así que es bien difícil hoy en día.
Sí, es que el punto es no solo de enojarnos, sino que queremos que por favor respeten con los comentarios, que por favor no dejen negativas comentarios en mi YouTube, en mi Facebook, en mi Instagram.
¿Por qué están así?
No.
Van a hablar babosadas,
Por favor, que lo único que van a recibir es bloqueado, por mi parte bloqueado. Y hasta ahí llegó.
Ni me pregunten a seguirme a mí, porque voy a bloquear y no voy a aceptar, punto. Especialmente si yo veo una página que no tiene nada de fotos, ¿ok? Eso para mí es que tú tienes mucho tiempo en tus manos y no estás haciendo nada productivo. No es por nada, pero son varias cosas. Por eso a Jorge no le gusta a veces compartir conmigo, porque yo digo, la gente no tiene nada que ver, que solamente quieren ver, quieren criticar y quieren chambrear. Y para empezar este año 2022, en esa actitud, mamita, papito, por favor.
Es tiempo de crecer y buscar una vida propia.
Es tiempo de aventurarse. And if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say nothing. Don't follow him. Don't follow me.
Keep it moving.
Don't follow me. Don't follow George. You're going to get blocked. Especially trolls, man. When you guys have like 0 pictures posted and all you do is follow people. You don't post any of your crap.
Criticize.
And it's like, you're going to get blocked. I've blocked already a lot of people already because I feel like, and I've got, again, I monitor what I post. I don't post. I'm not like George. George posts whatever and whatever crap. I'm not like that. Well, you know what I mean. He posts whatever.
I like to share. You don't like to share.
I am more reserved in that
very
respect.
Reserved.
Okay.
Very reserved.
And if I want to share, I want to share, and it's gonna be a nice picture, whatever. But if I am seeing that you are trolling, okay, where you have like 0 posts or you got like 10 posts and you follow like hundreds of people
or thousands
of people, that to me, you're a troll, man. You have no life. And the comments that were said yesterday were very unnecessary. I don't have to tell you what I know about biblical background. I know my stuff. I know the stuff. And I'm a loss for words because I am here in the Holy Land. And I'm taking it all in. I'm taking the fact that we are here and we're about to enter this amazing park that we came across, that George has some YouTube thing on, and oh my goodness, really? It's there? Let's go. So this is like an impromptu thing that is now a reality that we're about to visit. So please save your negative comments, disrespectful comments to yourself, or unfollow or block us. Take care. God bless you.
Yes, thank you very much.
Let's
end on a positive note.
Okay.
What's the positive note you want to end on?
I think if you choose to visit this Holy Land, read your Bible for yourself.
Okay.
And then it will impact you like you won't imagine. Like when you see the names of the cities and the things that happen, and you're like looking at the map of ancient Israel to present. I mean, it's mind blowing to me that I'm here.
I think one thing I would end on is take this time, if you ever come to the Holy Land, and allow for moments of joy and happiness
and
to
be
happen.
Present. Be
present, to disconnect.
Hay que estar presente, desconectar.
Get off your phone.
Exacto.
And just look at the panorama.
Jorge está grabando todo. Yo trabajo, pero mi teléfono de trabajo está off. Okay?
Yes.
So I'm just connected and I'm just being present in the moment and I'm enjoying and taking this all in.
All right.
Because again, what I don't like is the disrespect.
Yes.
Especially when my brother is being so amazing and sharing this journey with thousands and thousands and millions of people that do not have this opportunity right now.
A lot of people, for example, en El Salvador, no tienen la manera de venir a la ciudad santa, a la tierra santa, a Israel. Y por medio de estos videos, ellos están vacacionando conmigo. So, por favor, otra vez, respetemos, amemos todo positivo y se cuidan. Para la otra, cuídense, amores. Adiós y lo veremos en otro video más adelantito. Bye. Hola, estamos aquí en un parque hermoso que se llama Timna Park, pero hemos también encontrado que en este parque yo ya había buscado la información. Estamos en un lugar especial porque este es el tabernáculo, una réplica del tabernáculo de cómo los judíos formaban el tabernáculo durante ellos viajaban durante todo el tiempo en el desierto. Ellos iban por todas partes del desierto, lo construían, lo bajaban, lo construían, lo bajaban, porque para ellos esto era un lugar sagrado siempre donde Dios, su presencia rodeaba el lugar, y adentro del tabernáculo está la arca de Noé, la arca, the Ark of the Covenant, how do you say covenant?
Del pacto.
La arca del pacto, que todavía ahorita no los han demostrado. Estamos aquí con un guía que va, en cada hora van a comenzar los tours para que la gente conozca la historia claramente de cómo fue esto, de cómo lo construyeron. Él nos estaba contando de que ellos leyeron la Biblia, leyeron todos los
Versículos.
no,
Capítulos.
They measured.
Oh.
Tomaron medida exactamente como decía la Biblia para ellos poderlo hacer y construir exactamente como dice en la Biblia. So, lo que están viendo, así son de cabal las partes del tabernáculo. Aquí sacrificaban los animales, todos los animales, y el humo salía. Allá en medio se lavaban las manos con agua pura, y adentro le decían the Holy of Holies, donde
Lo más santo de
lo
santos.
más santo, que era donde vivía Dios,
Más sagrado.
más sagrado, y donde mantenían el arca del pacto. So, para que vean, miren qué bello, y rodeado del desierto estamos, para que vean el panorama. Miren, si ven aquí en el principio, aquí subían los animales y los sacrificaban, los quemaban, y era un olor fragante para Dios. Dios recibía todo eso que ellos ofrecían. Y miren cómo es de grande. Si vamos aquí arriba, vamos a poder ver cómo es por dentro, cómo lo hacían. Miren cómo lo hacían. Miren qué especial. Miren qué especial. Y aquí se sacrificaban los animales. Si vamos al lugar donde se lavaban las manos y ponían la agua fresca y pura, ese era el primer proceso. Después tenían que limpiarse las manos. Y aquí es como lo hacían, así de grande. Antes de entrar adentro, y no podía adentrar cualquier persona, solo personas santas y personas que ellos elegían. Ok, espero les gustó este pedacito de video, y algo muy especial en mi opinión. Si vienen a Israel, vénganse a la área de Eilat y al parque de Timna. Se me cuiden, adiós.
What do you guys know about the tabernacle? Let's hear a little bit about what you guys know.
You want me to start?
Yeah, go ahead, George.
So I know that this was built and rebuilt when they were crossing the desert. It went with them everywhere. I know that they sacrificed animals in the beginning part.
Correct.
They washed their hands in the middle, and only special elected people or priests were allowed inside.
Correct. Well, that's all true.
And if you didn't make it through, then they will pull you out because you would.
Be dead.
So that part is actually not written in the Bible.
Okay.
That the high priest that's kind of more like a legend where the high priest was tied with a rope, and whenever he went into the Holy of Holies, if he died inside the Holy of Holies because they were not allowed to go in, they would pull him out. But that's not written in the Bible, and we personally don't believe that part is true. Not only because it's not written in the Bible, but because that if he did have an impure thought and if he did do something that he was not supposed to, he would have never made it inside the tent in the first place. He would have died outside.
Yeah, there's a lot of reasons.
Yeah, I mean,
There's
those
a
are
lot
the
of
two main
reasons.
reasons.
Yeah, there's a lot of reasons. The main reason is basically the job of the high priest is he represented God to the people and he represented the people to God. So his main job was on Yom Kippur, Day of Atonement, to offer the sins of the people in front of God. Now, sin is what divides us from God from the first place. So the thing that God actually wants is a personal relationship with us. That's why he had this. He said, build this so I can dwell with my people. So why would God kill the person that would offer the sins of the people? It makes no sense. And somebody who's dead, he's unpure. Okay, and so if somebody touches it, he has to purify. It's not good. So why would it be something unpure in front of God?
I have a question.
Yes.
Why did they sacrifice animals? Like, I guess my question is, was it for the blood? Was it for the demonstration of you're giving up something?
Okay.
A bit of both.
A little bit of both.
It's a little bit of both. First of all, you need to understand that it's written in the New Testament that this is a shadow of the heavenly tabernacle. And the whole thing with the sacrifices actually starts with God. He's the one who offered the first sacrifice. In the Garden of Eden, when Adam and Eve sinned, he sacrificed an animal. He killed an animal to clothe them with skin. So he's the one who offered the first sacrifice. Now what's interesting is this, right? Now, God both created the man and he created the animals. Well, why didn't he kill Adam and Eve and start again? Perfect world, no sin. Fresh beginning.
There were more animals than men.
Well, yeah, but he can create it. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
But that shows the love that God had for his people from the beginning. And then, so this is just a picture to show, and you can also read about it in the book of Hebrews, chapter 4. And we see that God actually fulfilled it. So he was the first one to offer sacrifice, and he was the last one to fulfill it with the sacrifice of Yeshua, of Jesus, who offered it. So this was just a picture of what was to come with the sacrifices, because there are many different sacrifices. But the most important one is the sin sacrifice. Sorry, I'm stealing that.
Yeah, no problem.
But the most important one is the sin sacrifice, and it's different than the rest of the sacrifices. The reason is, here, they only burn the fat and the kidneys of the animal. That's it.
Oh.
All the rest of the animal, the flesh, the blood, and
the
bones,
fat and the kidney?
that's it.
Why?
Because, well, what is a kidney?
It gives life.
It's a filter. It takes away all the bad things.
The
that's in your
impurities.
body. The
Oh.
impurities. So you burn everything here, but all the rest of the body, which we're talking about 95% of the body, which is the flesh, the bones, and the skin, they burn it in a holy place outside of the people. So every place they camped, they had a holy place outside where they would burn the sin sacrifice.
Okay.
So why is it interesting? It's because, well, we talked a little bit about Jesus being our sin sacrifice. And when Jesus was our sin sacrifice, where did he die? He didn't die with the people, but actually died outside of Jerusalem as our sin sacrifice. So there's a lot of resemblance from this. Again, this is a shadow of what is to come and the fulfillment of what Jesus will do through the tabernacle.
Thank you. And before we begin, you guys have a ministry here, so it's Messianic ministry, right? Or
It's
what
not
is it,
necessarily
Tabernacle?
messianic.
Okay.
It's not necessarily challenge the non-believers, the Jewish people, the average Israeli who comes here, to show him what happened here. Because this is more than just a religious thing. This is the history and the heritage of the Jewish people.
Yes.
But again, we don't have to tell them about Jesus or say the name of Jesus to teach them about the Messiah, because everything points to the Messiah, and Yeshua, Jesus, is in the Old Testament. So we can point to things that point to the Messiah, and if they want to, then they can ask questions, and we want to challenge them to go back to the Bible and search it themselves.
And what was the name of the ministry? Walled Edge?
It's called Moving Edge. Moving Edge. But this is the Tabernacle. Yeah, this is just our business name. It's Moving Edge, or in Hebrew it's called the Tsena.
Sena. Sena?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
Sena.
so,
All right,
yeah.
so let's commence.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, God gave Moses very precise instructions on how to build the tabernacle, all the dimensions, or most of the dimensions rather, and the materials that were used. So the dimensions they used was a cubit, elbow to the tip of your long finger, roughly 45 to 50 centimeters, and that was the measurement of length that they used all the way back, even at the time of Noah and the ark. And another measurement they used was a measurement of weight called a talent. A talent is somewhere between 55 to 60 kilograms in weight. So, for example, the entire perimeter of the courtyard, there were 64 of these copper talents, each one weighing between 55 to 60 kilograms in weight. The materials that were used was mostly wood, acacia wood. Here we have an acacia tree. A very, very thorny tree, very crooked, very hard and tough to work with.
Okay.
So,
but difficult for it to fall apart as well.
yeah, it was very
Strong.
durable, but and because it was durable, it was hard to work with. And that symbolizes, if you look at every little thing, pretty much every little thing symbolizes something about either the gospel, about us, or about Jesus, Yeshua. So the acacia tree represents us. We are the acacia. We are crooked, bad, sinful, thorny people. And just as the Jewish people took the acacia wood, they straightened it out, they turned it into something beautiful, and ultimately God dwells in the tabernacle just as He dwells within us, just as He dwells within us. And so God takes us, straightens us out, turns us into something beautiful, and dwells in us.
Yes.
The very first time that the tabernacle is even mentioned in Exodus 25, God says, "Build me a tabernacle that I may dwell in you." He doesn't say among you; he says, "Dwell in you."
What is the difference between a tabernacle and a temple?
So the tabernacle is basically just the portable temple that they carried with them in the desert, as you said in the very beginning.
They took it down and put it back up.
Yeah. A total of 42 times that they took it apart and put it back together.
42 times.
Yeah,
Wow.
over the course of 40 years.
While they were lost.
What?
While they were lost.
They weren't. They were kind of lost, but they knew where to go based on the pillar of fire at night and pillar of cloud by day.
Okay.
And it was that was how God showed them when to stop and when to go and where to go, all the way until they arrived at Shiloh. Shiloh. Much of the acacia wood is overlaid with gold, with copper, with silver, and those are pretty much the materials that we use. The first thing that they saw when they came in was the altar.
Right. This is where the animals will be sacrificed.
Correct. The altar was made of acacia wood overlaid with copper, and inside was the eternal fire. God was the one who started the fire when they first built the tabernacle.
Oh, wow.
And they were never allowed to let the fire burn out.
Wow.
They always had to go out and collect wood and make sure that there was enough wood to keep the fire burning. And the fire kept burning all the way through the destruction of the first temple.
Now, when it was taken down, where was the fire going?
That's an excellent question. What they did was that they would lift the altar. I mean, the altar was slightly lifted so that they could put one wood underneath, even when they settled down. But when it was time to keep moving, lift the altar, with these big poles,
Right.
and they would take the wood and coals out, and they would keep the fire burning, but they would put it in a special box, and then they would carry that until the next
Makes sense.
until the pillar of fire, pillar of cloud stopped again.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Next thing, here we have the copper wash base, or the sink in Hebrew. Kyo.
Kiel is called kiel.
Kyo.
Kiel.
This is where they would wash their hands.
Yeah, and their feet. They didn't wash their hands like this
Okay.
because they would just fill up with blood and dirt.
Right.
Rather, the priests would take the water out and they would wash outside. This is actually the only thing in the entire tabernacle that is not written in the Bible any dimensions, not the shape, weight, or size. What is written about it is that it was made of pure copper, that it sat in between the altar and the tent itself, and that it was made of the mirrors of the women that donated their mirrors, polished copper, in order to make the wash base. So the priests, whenever
so it shined a lot.
Yeah, it shined, and the priests could see their own reflection most likely whenever they washed their hands and feet. There's really not written much about this. Everything I said up until now is basically everything that's written about it. But it
could have been smaller or bigger.
What was that?
It could have been smaller
It could
or
have been
bigger.
smaller, bigger, higher,
Right.
smaller, square.
Okay.
We don't know. But if you think about the deeper meaning behind this, there's quite a lot of meaning behind it. So, washing obviously symbolizes purification. So, why would God tell us to put the wash basin between the altar and the tent? Why not? If you're supposed to wash yourself first before coming in, why isn't the altar between the wash basin and the tent? Well, because I believe because God does not wait for us to cleanse ourselves before offering the sacrifice. The sacrifice is what purifies us before going into the presence of the Lord, before getting into a relationship with God. Also, part of the purification process is self-examination, is looking at ourselves, and that's why the priest could see their own reflection. That's why it was made of mirrors. Also, Jesus says, anyone who comes to me who is thirsty, I will give him living water. And so water also represents grace. And I believe that the reason God did not give any dimensions for the wash base is because you cannot measure the grace of God.
Okay.
So every little thing points
Matters.
to something about God. Talk a little bit more about practicality and logistics of taking apart and putting back together the tent. The tabernacle was made of these big wooden boards, also acacia wood, but overlaid with gold this time. And there were 48 boards in total. There were 20 on one side, 20 on the other side, and 8 in the back.
Wow.
Each board was a cubit and a half wide and 10 cubits tall.
Wow.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Why was gold used?
Gold, well, obviously gold is more precious than copper. It represents, I don't remember exactly what it represents, but I know that I think it represents something like holiness.
Okay.
But, the closer you get to the Holy of Holies, you see the more gold is
Yes.
used. Outside there's copper, which is not as pretty, not as beautiful. And gold is a lot prettier. But the gold was actually covered. The common people, when they saw the tent from the outside, they did not see the gold or the colors that covered it. They saw goat skin, goat fur, and ram skin, and which I'll explain soon about the layers that covered the top. But the boards themselves, so it was a cubit and a half wide and 10 cubits tall, and there were 3 things that held each board in place. The first thing were these hooks on the inside, that would just they would just attach together, kind of like Legos or IKEA. The second thing were these also wooden poles overlaid with gold. There were 5 poles in total, 4 on the outside, and the 5th one on the inside that ran inside the boards all the way through the back.
Wow.
And the third thing, each board was held in place by 2 talents of silver. If you remember, a talent is between 50 and 60 kilograms in weight. Each board was held in place by somewhere between 100 to 120 kilograms of
It was heavy.
Yeah. Do you know who was in who took apart and put together the tent? Which people were the ones who actually did the hard work?
Who did the hard work?
Who carried the tabernacle?
The
Tribe
ones.
of
Oh.
Tribe of, I don't know, Reuben?
close.
Okay,
Levi.
Levi.
Levi, yes, that's what
The
I was
Levites.
gonna say. The Levit, something.
You would have been right.
Yeah.
Were the tents also part of?
The what?
The tents was also part of it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'll explain that.
Okay.
Soon.
So,
So the
quick
Levites-
question: why the Levites? Why them?
Why exactly?
Yeah.
Well, Moses and Aaron were from the tribe of Levi.
Mm-hmm.
Why did God choose the Levites specifically to carry the tabernacle? We don't know for sure. The religious Jews say, it's not written in the Bible, but the religious Jews like to say that the Levites did the least hard work in Egypt. In Egypt,
So it's time to make up.
So I was
Yeah,
gonna
but-
say, but I didn't want to be rude. I was gonna say maybe because they were the worst of them, not worst, but the ones that
Less
maybe
utilized.
maybe sinned the most. I didn't know. I didn't.
maybe we don't know for sure. It's not
Okay,
really
because it
written
seemed like
exactly.
hard work.
Yeah, sometimes God chooses the
Right.
best people for hard work, and sometimes God chooses the
Okay,
worst people. God
right.
is,
God is
Only
God.
He knows. Yeah.
And who are we to question?
Right.
who chooses,
Thank
who he
you.
chooses?
Who are we to question certain
Yeah.
things?
But we always have questions.
Yeah. So the Levites were the ones who did the hard work, and the priests, the Kohanim, they were also of the tribe of Levi, but the priests themselves did not do the logistics of taking apart the tent. They were more of the spiritual workers.
Even
written-
in that, I think, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Even in that, I feel like God is a God of order. From giving instructions before you construct, to the material, to the measurements, and then to the actual personnel that was divided for the work.
Exactly. So the way it was divided, it was very, very organized.
Mm-hmm.
It's written in the Bible a very precise number of Levites that worked on this. 5,830 men
Wow.
over the age of 20, men over the age of 20. And they were divided into families. Each family was in charge of one piece. So, for example, family number 500 and whatever was in charge of the 10th block from the left, for example.
Mm.
And when it was time to take apart the tent, that family would take their piece and they would carry it with them until it was time
Okay.
to put it together again.
So you said over 5,000 people managed it.
5,830 men.
5,830 men managed and carried it and
Yeah.
put
correct.
it back together and
Yeah,
took it
they
apart.
not only carried it, but everything that had to do with
We're responsible for it.
making sure that the sink was always filled with water, making sure that there was wood for the fire. They were also priests. They were also,
Wow, that's
a bit of
incredible.
everything, all the logistics of this whole
The
thing.
logistics, that's
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
So they would start like that, and they would put it together over and over.
Wow.
Here, one of my favorite parts I like to talk about, but usually with non-believers I skip over this because it gets a little boring.
We're
Right.
believers. We're believers.
Are the layers that cover the tent from up top. There were 4 layers in total. Each layer was the size of 28 by 28 cubits, so 15 to 16 meters, that covered the whole tent all the way to the back, up the top, and down the other side again.
Wow.
The first layer was the most important layer. It's what we call the holy colors. The colors were blue, purple, red, and white, and then there was blue again.
Blue, red, purple,
Well,
and
blue, purple, red, white, and then blue again.
Now, what do the colors mean?
I was just going to touch on that. So blue represents sky or heaven. Purple represents royalty. Red represents blood and death. And white represents purity and cleanliness.
I have a question. So royalty, in what sense does that mean? Like, I'm a little confused.
Royalty, kingship, like a ruler.
But heavenly or earthly?
Well, here, this specifically, I believe, represents heavenly royalty. So if you put it all together in this order, it actually tells basically the gospel. It's telling the story of the gospel.
Skies.
God sits up in heaven, rules over all. Sends his son Jesus to sacrifice.
Red is sacrifice.
Red is blood. And
Blood.
Sacrifice, yeah.
And it's only through blood can we be cleansed and purified. But then why is there blue again? Because after
It always forms a circle.
Well, because after this whole process, God takes us back up to heaven with him.
Right.
I've done a few research myself. Like blue for me also means a symbolism of the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah. Possibly. Yeah. That's a good way to put it. The Holy Spirit.
Because when he ascended, he left his Holy Spirit.
And I also think that it starts with God, it ends with God.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I never thought of that. That's a good way to put it.
Like a circle thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On top of this, there were 3 more layers. There was goat fur that protected most likely from rain and water. On top of that, there was ram skin dyed red. And on top of that, there was skin from an animal in Hebrew called tachash, which nobody really knows what this animal is. It's mentioned only a few times in the Bible. In English, some translations use the word porpoise, which is like some sea animal, like a whale or a dolphin, but we don't really know. Some people say it might have been a dinosaur, it might have been a dolphin, it might have been most people believe it's like a dolphin or something. I personally believe that it's possibly an extinct animal that we don't know about today, possibly an animal that God created specifically for the tabernacle. But recently I thought about the spiritual meaning behind that layer, that outermost layer, that I realized ultimately it doesn't really matter. What matters is what's on the inside. And the outside is what people see, is what
So the reasoning for the animal layers, we don't really know.
Well, I think much of it was practical, sun and heat and water and rain. But I do believe that there is a spiritual meaning behind it as well. I mean, just like the acacia wood, there is practical reasons. It's very tough, it's very durable, but it's also very light.
Oh,
interesting.
So, but there's also spiritual meaning behind it. So God is very clever with the materials and details and I mean, he created it basically for that. And so just as the common people saw the outer layer of this animal that we don't know about, but they didn't see the beauty on the inside of the whole thing, it's how it is with us. On the outside, it really doesn't matter who we are on the outside. It doesn't matter our skin color, Jewish, Gentile, male, female, background, language, whatever, anything. What matters is what's on the inside. And that's what God really cares about.
What is your name again?
Ariel.
Ariel. Okay.
And your names are?
George and Rosa.
George and Rosa.
Wow.
I love it.
Welcome.
Oh my goodness.
Tabernacle.
Absolutely beautiful. I'm going to stop and just...
So, you can divide the whole thing, the whole thing into 3 parts. The first part was the outside, the courtyard, where the common people were allowed inside only if they had an offering or a sacrifice to offer. They couldn't just come in and party or hang out whenever they wanted. The second part was this room that we are in. This is called the holy place, and only the priests were allowed in. Also, not just to hang out whenever they wanted, but for specific reasons such as lighting the menorah, the lampstand, or eating the bread, or offering the altar of incense.
I
And
have
the
a
third
question.
part, yeah.
I'm not too clear as to what the menorah is and for.
Yeah,
If you could
so
answer.
I'll explain about that.
Okay.
But the third part is the Holy of Holies, in which only the high priest was allowed in
Right.
once a year.
Oh wow.
On the Day of Atonement, on Yom Kippur, the holiest day.
Oh
of
wow.
Okay.
So the menorah,
Wow.
the lampstand, was made of pure gold.
Yes.
We don't know the exact size of it, but based on the weight, it does say the weight, and based on the weight, we can roughly guess the size of the lampstand. And there were seven lampstands.
Those were actual lamps holding
Yeah,
oil.
lamps. Yeah. So the priests would fill every day, just like outside. We're not allowed to let it burn out. But the priests every day had to fill this part with olive oil, and there was a wick in the front that came out the front, and so the fire burned in the front. It was the only source of light in the whole room. So you can imagine if all the walls are overlaid with gold, you can imagine how the light reflected off the walls. Probably one of the most beautiful things.
And 7 is for
7 days.
7 days of the week,
okay.
but not just a week. A week in Hebrew, Shavua, can not only mean 7 days, but it can also mean 7 weeks. For example, 7 weeks from Passover to the Feast of Weeks. It was 7 weeks from the time that Jesus died until the disciples received the Holy Spirit. A week can be 7 years. For example, Daniel chapter 9 says, 70 weeks. In 70 weeks, the Messiah will come. If you count that, that's exactly 490 years, and if you actually do the math, it's basically exactly 490 years from when Daniel said that until Jesus actually was born. It's very the number was very, very precise.
Yes.
All numbers are very significant. Like
Yeah.
3 is Trinity, you know.
Yeah.
5 is grace. 7 is completion.
Exactly.
And 8 is new beginnings.
Yeah, exactly.
Completion.
Yeah,
Wow.
7 days. He made Earth 6 days, and the 7th he rested. So 7 days. Yeah.
Correct.
Completion.
Yeah. Jesus says, "I am the light of the world," and so the menorah, you can basically points toward Jesus being the source of light, because this was the only source of light. And remember, we are the tabernacle. The tabernacle represents us, but we are not the source of light. Jesus is the source of light, and just as the walls of the tabernacle reflected the light, the source of the light, we are to reflect the source, the light source, which is Jesus himself. We are supposed to shine his light onto the world around us.
So this menorah lighted the entire room,
Correct.
not the Holy of Holies.
No, the Holy of Holies was most likely dark. There was
Okay.
no light source in there.
Oh wow.
The showbread, in Hebrew, lechem hapanim, showbread or bread of presence, sat on the table. There were always 12 loaves. Do you know why there were 12 loaves?
12 tribes.
Exactly, 12 tribes. That represents how God provides the needs of all of Israel, not just the Levites or the priests or whatever, but God provides the needs for everybody. Only the priests were allowed to eat the showbread, and they ate it on Shabbat, on Saturday. And later on Sunday, the first day of the week, they would make more, and it would stay fresh until the next Shabbat. It's written that they would eat it with olive oil and with hyssop. Hyssop is a plant that is used to make zatel. Have you tried zatel?
I think so. I think so.
Well, you gotta try it again.
Yeah.
I mean, it's delicious. It's a very common Israeli herb, Israeli spice.
Do they put it on some kind of white substance like sour cream, but it's not sour cream, and then they put some.
Usually they mix it with olive oil, sometimes sesame seeds, and it's got a nice. I don't know how to describe it. It's not spicy. It's like
I think I have.
Yeah, it's green. It's a dark green color. It's possible. It's not written, but it's possible that they ate it with other dips and spices like hummus and Timna.
And everything was made with gold in here.
So the table was made of acacia wood overlaid with gold, unlike the menorah which was made of pure gold.
Pure gold.
Yeah,
Wow.
menorah was made of solid, and it was also made of one piece of gold, meaning they didn't take pieces and attach it, but they took one chunk of gold and they formed it, and because pure gold is a relatively soft metal.
Yeah.
So they shaped and molded it into this beautiful shape. It is written in the Bible, one person and his men who ate the showbread who was not a priest. And that was David. David, the only person who ate the bread, and his men. It was before he became king. King Saul, chased David, tried to murder him. He was jealous of David. David ran away with a small group of men, and they came to the courtyard. And David told the high priest that he had not eaten anything in a couple of days. And the high priest said, "I have nothing to give you except for the showbread."
Did they have to eat every part or all 12 pieces?
The priests or David?
The priests.
The priests, they probably had to finish it all.
Okay.
Yeah. Because it was also the only thing they ate on Shabbat. They didn't eat anything else. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And there were, sometimes a large number of priests.
Okay. Amazing. Wow.
The altar of incense, or the golden altar, sometimes called, had also fire, but it wasn't like a fire. It was more like coals, hot coals. So it wasn't like a real source of light. The high priest, twice a day, had to burn here incense, which is different flowers, plants, perfumes, fruits that the high priest would grind into a very fine powder, and he would sprinkle that powder onto the altar, and it would fill the entire room with a beautiful smell, with a beautiful aroma. Yeah.
Because I'm sure God has reasons, but maybe the smell of the sacrifice outside was strong.
Exactly.
Okay.
So visually and the smell, there was a huge difference between inside and outside. Outside, it was all dull, gray, brown.
And the smell of sin being sacrificed.
The disgusting smell of
animals
and sacrifice and blood and guts and stuff. That was also, when you burn a body, it's also does not have a nice smell. But inside, it was beautiful. It was a nice, pleasant smell, and visually it was completely different. So it was just
wow.
I mean, when you are saved, your whole life changes.
Now, why does it have 4 horn type?
I'm not sure exactly the meaning behind it. Outside also there was 4 horns, one on each corner.
And did it have also those decorations on the side?
This, I don't know. It doesn't say exactly what the decorations were. It could have been flat, but it does say that there was a border around it, just like the table, and also the...
That's just adding to it, extra.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
I mean, the size is the right size. It says it was 1 by 1 cubit and like 2 cubits tall, or 2.5 cubits. And so the measurement is all this right size, but little details we don't know about. We have to take a guess. The priest, so the regular priest, wore only white with a head covering. It's also written that underneath this white layer, they had like kind of like an underwear or undergarment.
No shoes.
No shoes. They were never allowed to walk with shoes. They were always barefoot.
They're standing on holy ground.
Yeah, exactly. And there was no floor. There was no
Just-
floor in the just dirt, ground, rocks.
Okay.
Some religious Jews ask if there was like a carpet or something, but the Bible does not say anything about
No
floor.
comfort.
Yeah, no comfort. I mean, salvation, being a believer is not always comfortable.
Yes.
But the high priest had a much more beautiful grandeur uniform. He had a layer of blue over the white. He had a crown on his forehead that said "Holiness to the Lord." He had in a foot a breastplate that was made of the holy colors as well as gold. And on the breastplate were the 12 tribes of Israel. Each tribe having a different special stone, precious stone that represented it.
On the shoulders or what?
On the shoulders were the 12 sons of Israel, not the 12 tribes, but the 12 sons of Israel, written according to age. So 6 on one side, 6 on the other side, and they were written in the order that they were born. So that represents how the high priest had the responsibility of the 12 of all of Israel on his shoulders, and how he had to carry them close to his heart.
The middle section, the belt.
Sackcloth.
Mm-hmm.
Sackcloth, I think, was partly used kind of like a belt to keep everything together, but also, I think there was also a deeper meaning behind it. I don't remember.
Okay.
At the bottom, he had pomegranates and bells. So it says pomegranate, a belt, a pomegranate, a belt. The pomegranates were also made of the holy colors. And the bells, whenever he walked outside, the bells would ring, and whenever the people of Israel would hear the bells, they knew that they were in the presence of the high priest.
Oh, wow. And pomegranate is also used in the temples that David and Solomon created.
I believe so, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. The high priest had a very, very important role. He was a very important job, just like as Marco explained outside. He basically came to represent the people of Israel before God and to represent God before the people of Israel. He was the middleman, the mediator, you can ambassador, as I understand you're working at the embassy.
Yeah.
He was the ambassador between Israel and God.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So we would assume, of course, that Moses was going through the desert with everyone, and why wasn't he? Was he or was he not the high priest? Or
He was not the high priest.
okay.
Because he had sinned, he was chosen. God told him that he was not to be the high priest, but he was used as more of like the guide. He did speak directly to God and told Israel what was to be done. But the high priest was more of the mediator when it comes to atonement of sin. Aaron, the brother of Moses, was the first high priest. And it was from his lineage that the high priest, it was passed down from father to son. And it was lost.
Well, I have another question. It might be silly.
Yeah.
But doesn't everyone sin?
Yes, and that is an excellent question.
Okay.
On Yom Kippur, on the Day of Atonement, the high priest was the only one in the whole courtyard. People were not even allowed in the courtyard. The high priest, he was a sinner. He was human. So on Yom Kippur, when it was time to offer a sacrifice for all of Israel, he had to first offer a personal sacrifice for his own sins. He had to take care of his own sins and purify himself before he could offer a sacrifice for all of Israel. So it was Jesus did not have to do that because he was sinless. He never said what the high priest was. A human, and he was a sinner. So he did have to personally take care of himself.
Okay.
That's also, Jesus says, take out the log in your own eye before taking the splinter out of your friend's eye. Then he would sacrifice an animal for all of Israel, and he would walk in with the blood of the sacrifice into the Holy of Holies and sprinkle the blood on the Ark of the Covenant. So they would take 2 goats. One was slaughtered, and the blood was poured on the Ark of the Covenant, and the second was led out into the wilderness to die, to represent the sins leaving Israel, the sins leaving and going away from us. Jesus is our high priest, and that's a very, very obvious comparison. Jesus is we are the regular priests, and Jesus is the high priest. And the regular people, not even regular priests, were the ones who offered the sin offering. The high priest was the one who offered the sin offering, and that shows how Jesus is the one who sacrificed himself. God was the one who provided the sacrifice. There's nothing we can do in our own strength. There's nothing we can do in our own abilities to atone for our own sins. Now we get to the best part.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Were there 4 golden pillars, or?
So there were a total of 9 pillars. There were 5 on the outside and 4 on the inside. There are 5 on the outside and 4 on the inside. They were also made of acacia wood overlaid with gold. On the outside, the bases were made of copper, but on the inside, the bases were made of silver. So it shows how the closer you get to the Holy of Holies, the more precious and holy everything becomes.
And were those symbolized as angels? Were those?
These were the cherubim also.
Cherubim also.
Yeah,
okay.
cherubim that were stitched with gold into the veil, as well as on the top.
Oh, wow.
So why 5 and 4? Well, it's not written, but I personally believe that the reason it's 5 and 4, it has to do with the 5 books of the Torah: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, the first 5 books of the Bible. And then the 4 pillars on the inside represent the 4 Gospels: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John.
Yeah.
It shows that first came the law of Moses. That was the temporary solution for atonement of sin. But in order to truly be in the presence of God, you have to go through the Gospels. You have to go through the New Testament eventually.
Go through Jesus.
You have to go through Jesus in order to truly be in the presence of God, in order to truly have a relationship with God. And that's why I believe there's 5 on the outside and 4 on the inside. And here is the Holy of Holies. Inside was the Ark of the Covenant. The Ark was made of a couple of pieces. There was the body, made of acacia wood overlaid with gold. There were the poles, also made of wood overlaid with gold. But the lid was made of pure gold, also called the mercy seat. And attached to it were the 2 cherubim, or the 2 angels, in Hebrew Cherubim, which comes from the word karov, to be close.
Cherubim.
Yeah, Cherubim. And
Cherubim means angel?
Cherubim, Cherubim literally means close, like they're close.
Oh.
And that, so there are different types of angels in the Bible. There's the cherubim, there's the seraphim, and so on and so forth. So the cherubim, from the word to be close, to represents basically the presence of the Lord. And so it's written that they sat one facing one another, with their heads facing down, looking into the ark, and their wings covering the ark from up top, and the tips of the wings touching each other.
And the stones inside.
Inside, so there were 3 things inside the ark. There were the tablets of stone on which were written the 10 Commandments. The second thing was the staff or rod of Aaron. Aaron was the brother of Moses. He was the first high priest. And it was through the staff that God showed the people of Israel that Aaron, was to be the first high priest. And the third thing was a jar or a bowl of manna bread. The manna that God provided to the people of Israel.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
So these are three things that each one represents a different aspect of the relationship between God and man. The tablets that represent the morality that God gives us. The staff of Aaron, who is the high priest, who is the mediator between God and man. And the manna, which represents the provision of God for man. So
like the Trinity.
Huh?
Like the Trinity.
Yeah. So three things that each representing a different aspect. And so the angels looking down, angels that represent the presence of the Lord looking down onto what connects us to God. The high priest coming in with the blood, sprinkling the blood on the mercy seat, represents how it's as if God is looking through the blood onto what connects us to him, and it's only through blood. Only through sacrifice can we be in a relationship with God to rebuild that relationship that has been broken by sin.
Did you get that? It's the 10 Commandments.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Take a picture.
And it's just that my lighting is not good.
Yeah, lighting is.
Take,
That's good.
Take whatever.
Yeah.